Hey there, you fabulous cultured folks. Welcome back to Cultured Captions, where the plot thickens and the story isn't the only thing with rising action. If you're enjoying our content, don't forget to smash that like button and hit subscribe to stay ahead of the curves in this story. And trust me, you don't want to miss the wild twists and turns we've got coming up. So, grab your popcorn, sit back, and let's dive right back deep into the culture.
The day begins with Makyo testing some magic in his equipment. Holding a knife, he is deep in thought, silently channeling his magic power. His focus is intense, and after a brief moment of concentration, he directs his magic towards the knife, attempting to infuse it with fire magic, but immediately experiences a setback. Hot! 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 He shouts as flames engulf the entirety of the knife, forcing him to drop the weapon. Disappointed, he reflects on the limitations of the knife, admitting to himself, a knife made of coconut resin is totally useless. Despite his frustration, he continues to experiment with other options, thinking about how he could enhance his blade by making it into a magic sword, but nothing seems to be working as planned. In the next scene, Makyo recalls his earlier attempts, testing various materials from demon creatures like hell beetles' horns and pincers, yet none of them seem to yield the results he desires. Nothing seems to fit quite right, he reflects, comparing his struggle to moments ago. Makyo reflects on the incident with the tree ant and wonders if he could duplicate that feeling that allowed him to leap into the air. Makyo concentrates on his fist and punches the ground as Chair calls out to him, "Makyo, food's ready." A powerful explosion rocks the ground as Makyo slams his fist into it, cracking the earth with sheer force. The sheer strength of his action is overwhelming as cracks expand across the surface. His face shows surprise at the intensity of his own power, while Chair watches in amazement, her eyes wide open. Chair is baffled by Makyo's display, yelling at him in her demonic language. Makyo looks at her, confused. What's with all the noise? Makyo, still stunned by his newfound strength, wonders aloud if his magic might be a kind unknown to the demon race, and despite the confusion, a hint of excitement crosses his face. As they both return to the cave to have the food Cher has prepared, Makyo is presented with a plate of raw meat and nuts. It shares confidence. In response, Makyo appears determined to prove her wrong. "I'll make something proper. Watch me," he says, his determination evident. Soon after, Makyo bakes bread, much to Chair's delight. "It's bread!" he proudly declares as Chair eagerly digs in. Her excitement is palpable as she devours the bread, smiling gleefully. "Bread, yummy," she says, savoring each bite. Her enthusiasm is contagious, and Makyo watches on, pleased with himself. Chair is clearly enjoying the simple yet delightful meal, and Makyo seems to bask in her joy. As the day winds down, Makyo reflects on how helpful Chair's presence has been. Though he's glad to have her help, he knows that eventually he will need to send her back to where she came from. "Eventually, I'll have to send Cher back," he ponders, his gaze turning serious. Still, there's a bittersweet tone to his thoughts, as he knows their time together won't last forever. Makyo then suggests, "For now, let's chop some wood together." Chair, always enthusiastic, agrees with a smile. Makyo adds that they'll build a ship for Chair so she can return home whenever she wants. Chair, not understanding, is happy and enthusiastic about the idea. As Makyo begins to chop trees, he laments the inadequacy of his tools. "If only we had proper weapons instead of resin, we could make magic swords," he sighs. Then a sword appears in his mind's eye, one of the mysterious metal weapons once owned by PJ. He imagines the possibilities, thinking of how they could enchant this weapon and use it to make the task easier. Makyo grabs PJ's sword and imbues it with wind magic and prepares to cut a tree with it. In the next moment, a surge of power slices through the trees, cutting them down with incredible speed. The magic-infused attack tears through the forest, leaving Makyo and Cher in awe as they witness the results. Makyo stands there, taking in the impact of the strike, while Cher watches from behind, seemingly just as stunned. As he holds it, he realizes that the magic conductivity of the sword is too high for him to control. "No way, this one's no good," he mutters, concerned about the weapon's unpredictability. It's clear that this sword, though powerful, is too dangerous for them to use recklessly, as it holds immense destructive potential. Cher watches from a distance, a grin on her face, as Makyo struggles to make sense of the situation. The weapon's sheer power is overwhelming, and he knows it would be too dangerous to use it without caution. PJ's belongings are too dangerous. Let's not use them recklessly, he warns himself, carefully placing the sword aside. The scene shifts to a quieter moment as Makyo and Cher continue their work. Makyo takes time to shape a piece of wood, but despite his efforts, it's not turning out the way he had hoped. It's not shaping up very well, he says. However, he takes solace in the fact that they have plenty of materials for the ship. The only issue now is waiting for the wood to dry. While they wait, Makyo considers practicing magic in new ways. Maybe I'll practice infusing magic into various parts of my body, he thinks aloud. His thoughts are cut short by Cher announcing she would go out hunting. Makyo advises her to be careful while hunting demons. As the day comes to a close, Makyo reflects on their hard work. Time flies when you're focused, he says as he and Cher sit by the fire, sharing a meal. Cher, ever cheerful, brought bread. The two sit together, enjoying the quiet moment as the fire crackles in the background. It's not a bad life, Makyo muses, content with their simple routine of eating when they're hungry and sleeping when they're tired. As the peaceful evening continues, Makyo drifts off to sleep, only to be startled awake by an odd sensation. Oddly cold, he mutters, still groggy from his rest. As he looks around, Cher suddenly bursts into his line of sight, drooling in her sleep. However, the peaceful moment quickly shifts into panic as he realizes the two have been lifted off the ground by a terrifying creature. What the heck? Makyo shouts as they are carried high into the sky by a massive wyvern, its sharp claws gripping them tightly. The sight is horrifying, and the sudden danger throws Makyo into a state of shock. Cher, despite the perilous situation, continues to sleep unfazed. The wyvern continues its ascent, and Makyo begins to assess the situation. This is bad. For now, we're too high to escape, he admits, calculating their options. Suddenly, Cher launches an attack on the wyvern, striking it with a powerful blow. The creature screeches in pain as its body erupts into a burst of energy. Ah! It cries. Makyo decides to act as well and stabs the monster, momentarily losing its grip on him. As the wyvern's grasp loosens, Makyo sees an opportunity and prepares to make his move. In the climactic moment, Makyo focuses his magic and infuses his fist with earth magic. Infuse my fist with earth magic, he commands himself, channeling his power into the attack. With a decisive strike, he punches the wyvern with all his might, the force of the blow shattering its teeth. As the desperate battle atop the menacing dragon rages on, Makyo's stance is firm. With a resolute shout of, "Take this!" he strikes, his fists crackling with magic, his legs charged with wind, ready to soften his landing. The dragon's massive jaws snap at the air, but Makyo leaps from its back, launching himself into the sky. He plummets, landing with a tremendous crash. The dragon writhes, roaring in pain as it tumbles, unable to regain its balance. Makyo touches down, his thoughts racing to Cher, his trusted companion. Encased in a sphere of water magic, both she and the monstrous creature slowly descend to the ground. Impressed by her quick thinking, Makyo yells, "Impressive!" Admiration shines in his voice. As the dust settles, Cher lies motionless, limp, seemingly lifeless. Ah, shit, she drowned. He mutters, rushing to her side. He provides her first aid, and she comes back to life, spouting water from her mouth like a fountain. Makyo and Cher, now stranded, casting long shadows over the barren, rocky terrain. Makyo, with a heavy heart, scans the desolate area. Stones and sand stretch for miles. They have no belongings, no shelter, no resources. A bleak, hopeless scenario. As night falls, a sandstorm sweeps in. Forced to take shelter in a rocky crevice, Makyo wraps Cher in his cloak, trying to keep her warm. She shivers, her fever alarmingly high. Makyo, worried, wonders aloud, could it be a cold? His voice trembles with concern. But in this unforgiving environment, there's no medicine, no way to help her. He sits, mind racing with impossible solutions. Suddenly, an idea strikes. He pulls out PJ's diary, a treasure trove of knowledge about magical creatures and remedies. Flipping through the pages, his eyes land on an entry about imps and their connection to cold remedies. "Here it is," Makyo exclaims, hope flickering in his chest. The diary mentions a demon's magic stone that can cure colds. The imps are far in the northern marshlands, but he has no choice. Cher's life depends on it. Makyo prepares quickly, crafting a makeshift shelter from wyvern membrane to protect Cher. This should help for a while, he says, trying to reassure himself. Infusing his legs with magic, he sprints through the wilderness, the world blurring around him as he races toward the marshlands. After a relentless journey, he arrives. He spots the imps beneath a tree, their small, sinister forms lurking in the shadows. There it is, he murmurs, eyes locking onto the demon. With his knife clutched tightly, he moves in. But suddenly he hears the ominous sound of a trant. The massive tree creature looms above him. Caught off guard, Makyo barely dodges its root-like attacks. With quick mastery, he channels his magic into a powerful strike. "Don't interfere, damn it!" he yells, his fist crashing into the Trent, sending shockwaves through the forest. He knows he must hurry. Cher needs him. Racing back as the sun sets, casting the desert in a fiery orange hue, Makyo returns to Cher, still unconscious. "Hey, I'm back now," he says softly, exhaustion lacing his words. He quickly retrieves the magic stone and places it in her hand. A dark mist begins to emanate from Cher's body, the cold slowly drawn out by the stone's magic. Did it work? Makyo's voice is filled with hope. Cher's eyes flutter open, her familiar cheerful energy returning as she exclaims, "Amazing!" As they prepare to continue their journey, Cher leans on Makyo, her small horns poking him. "Oi, don't stick to me. It hurts when your horns hit me." They laugh as the sun sets again, casting a warm glow over the horizon. They walk into the distance, the bond between them stronger than ever, ready for the next adventure. Meanwhile, far away, a group of mysterious adventurers arrives at the border of the demon land. The air is thick with tension as they gaze at the dark, foreboding forest. "So this is the demon land," a female adventurer mutters, her eyes narrowing as she surveys the ominous landscape. The day begins with the serene landscape, a forest stretching to the horizon, framed by the sounds of birds flying overhead. This peaceful environment sets a tranquil tone before the events that are about to unfold. Makyo, the protagonist, contemplates his next task as he stands in the middle of a field. He wonders aloud, maybe I'll use magic to draw water to the fields, as he gazes across the crops. His thoughts linger on whether or not he should continue with his farming activities, using magic to ease his workload. In the next scene, a female character, Cher, approaches him, catching his attention. She calls out, "Makyo!" Makyo is momentarily confused, turning towards her with a questioning expression. Cher points off into the distance and, with a serious expression, remarks, "People there." As she says this, we see a group of formidable-looking adventurers, led by a knight in shining armor, arriving with an air of determination. Makyo and Cher decide to observe the newcomers from a safe distance, hidden behind some foliage. As the adventurers march forward, weapons in hand, one of them calls for an attack on the creatures before them. "Attack the core while circulating magic," the leader shouts as he clashes with a giant slime, its gooey form seemingly invincible. Despite their efforts, the leader finds himself confused by the strength of these creatures, asking aloud, "What's with these monsters from the demon land?" as his party struggles against the overwhelming strength of even simple slimes. Makyo watches from his hiding spot, analyzing the adventurer's approach. His calm demeanor contrasts with the chaos of the battlefield. He mutters to himself, "Is this normal?" Noticing the adventurers using chaotic tactics and brute force despite their inability to target the core of the creatures, half of the party is visibly exhausted, their magic reserves depleted. Makyo, still concealed, contemplates the adventurers' inefficiency with a mixture of pity and disinterest. As the owner of the land, Makyo decides to approach the adventurers to ask them their motives of being on his land. Makyo approaches the leader of the adventurer group and asks him, "Excuse me, what are you doing here?" "We're the adventurer party, White Lightning," the leader exclaims with pride, flashing his adventurer card as if to prove their worth. Makyo steps forward, hands in his pockets, exuding an air of nonchalance. He responds matter-of-factly, explaining that this is private property and they shouldn't be here without permission. His tone is calm yet firm, making it clear that their presence is unwelcome, despite the adventurer leader boasting about their capability. The leader of the group, enraged by this remark, clenches his fist and yells, "What did you say? We are a renowned party even in the city." Makyo doesn't seem impressed and continues to address the situation bluntly, warning the adventurers that they might not be as strong as they think. But it looks like you might die, he tells them, pointing out their struggle with simple slimes and advising them not to go deeper into the demon lands. Their conversation was abruptly interrupted by a loud noise over the forest. A giant pseudo-dragon walking over the forest was approaching them. The adventurers flee in terror. Cher then gets Makyo's attention, calling out to him and telling him, "Forgot her," as she points the female cleric unconscious on the ground left by the adventurer team. Makyo sighs, seemingly indifferent to the situation, but still agrees to take care of the cleric, lifting her unconscious form and carrying her away. They decide to continue their journey, planning to leave the cleric at a nearby facility as they proceed with their mission. The next scene unfolds with Makyo preparing to depart for a trade mission. He and Cher are seen packing up supplies for the journey ahead. Makyo instructs Cher to cover her horns so that they aren't noticed, and she complies with a smile. Once their preparations are complete, Makyo infuses magic into his legs, increasing his speed, and the two depart with their supplies on their backs. Upon reaching a small fort-like settlement, Makyo meets with a trader who seems to be familiar with him. The trader, the captain of the fort, recognized Makyo as the adventurer from the Demon Lands. With a curious gaze, he inquired about Makyo's new companion. "This is Cher," Makyo replied, a hint of pride in his voice. "She might be a bit odd, but I assure you, she's reliable. With her by my side, I've been able to double the volume of our previous deals." As the discussion turned back to business, Makyo recounted the tale of the girl who had collapsed in the Demon Lands. The captain chuckled, his interest piqued. "Well, things certainly seem to be getting quite interesting," he remarked. The scene shifted, focusing on the captain as he examined Makyo's wares, each item brimming with potential. The trader is impressed with Makyo's craftsmanship, particularly a sword Makyo has brought for trade, crafted from the fang of a green tiger. "Amazing! You made this sword?" the trader asks, clearly impressed. The trade proceeds with Makyo negotiating for various goods. He asks for sewing tools, woodworking tools, and a few sets of women's clothing, along with other materials, including metal swords and, if possible, a spellbook on space-time magic. The trader agrees to Makyo's request for most of the items, but warns him that the spellbook might be hard to find. "There are many counterfeit spellbooks for expensive ones," the trader explains, suggesting that Makyo search for it himself in the capital city. Makyo acknowledges this and decides to look for the spellbook on his own. With his trade mission completed, Makyo shifts his focus to a new objective. "From today, I'll search for the ruins said to be in the demon land mentioned in PJ's notebook," he declares with determination. Cher, standing beside him, is filled with excitement at the prospect of exploring ruins. "The treasures of ruins are a man's romance," Makyo exclaims enthusiastically. However, Makyo soon realizes a critical flaw in their plan. The location of the ruins is not actually written in the notebook. After some contemplation, Makyo examines the map of the surrounding lands. He notes that the east leads to the sea, where Cher was, the west to the entrance of the Demon Land, the north to mountains and wilderness, while the south remains unexplored. Deciding to head south, Makyo and Cher set off on their adventure, eager to uncover the mysteries that lie ahead. Their journey takes them through varied landscapes, and they encounter several strange creatures, from a giant deer-like beast to an insectoid monster. Despite these challenges, their resolve remains strong as they press forward. As they continue their trek, the scene shifts dramatically. They emerge from the forest only to find themselves in a barren desert. "As soon as I got out of the forest, there's suddenly a desert," Makyo remarks in surprise. He stops in his tracks, surveying the desolate landscape, wondering if they have gone off course. "As far as the eye can see, there's nothing. Did I miss the mark?" he muses aloud, unsure of where they went wrong. Suddenly, a tremendous rumble shakes the ground beneath their feet, causing them to halt in their tracks. The earth begins to crack and split apart, revealing something enormous lurking beneath the surface. Before they can react, a colossal creature bursts forth from the sand, its gigantic, serpentine body towering over them. The sheer size of the beast is overwhelming, and both Makyo and his companion are frozen in awe and terror. "That's huge!" exclaims the companion, her voice trembling with fear as the creature rises higher and higher into the sky. Makyo, equally stunned, struggles to comprehend the enormity of the danger they now face. As they stare in disbelief, Makyo quickly rifles through his notebook, searching for any information that might help them identify the monstrous threat. His eyes widen as he finds a detailed sketch of the creature. "I got it! It's a sandworm!" he exclaims, but his relief is short-lived as he realizes the gravity of the situation. The sandworm, though categorized as a weaker monster, is incredibly large and poses a significant threat due to its size and strength. Without hesitation, Makyo draws his sword, his face set with determination. "Are you kidding me?" he mutters under his breath, fully aware of the imminent danger. He lunges forward, slashing at the creature's thick, armored hide, but to his dismay, his sword barely makes a dent. Not even the magic sword is effective at all, he thinks, the realization hitting him like a ton of bricks. Desperation sets in as he realizes that their current strategy is futile. "Run away!" his companion screams, panic evident in her voice as they turn and flee, the monstrous sandworm in hot pursuit. As they reach the safety of a dense forest, both Makyo and his companion are exhausted and shaken from the harrowing encounter. They collapse against a tree, their breaths coming in ragged gasps. Where is its weakness? Makyo wonders aloud, his frustration growing as he recalls the notebook's contents. "Let's search the notebook for any means of defense," he suggests, trying to stay focused despite the fear gnawing at the edges of his mind. His companion nods, though she remains silent, lost in her thoughts. After poring over the notebook for what feels like an eternity, Makyo finally finds something that catches his eye. "I might have found something," he says, his voice tinged with hope. The notebook details a unique magic circle, one that, when drawn and infused with magical power, could potentially create a weapon far more powerful than his sword. He traces the intricate design, carefully replicating the magic circle on the ground before him. "Let's try flowing magic power through it," he suggests, his heart pounding with anticipation. As the magic flows through the circle, a sudden explosion of energy erupts from the ground, sending a shockwave through the air. Makyo and his companion are thrown back by the force, their eyes wide with amazement. It's like it's cutting through space. Upon closer inspection, Makyo realizes that the magic circle bears a striking resemblance to the designs incorporated into the weapons and armor crafted by PJ, a skilled craftsman. Moreover, they're seamlessly integrated into the decoration, making them not immediately noticeable, Makyo observes, marveling at the craftsmanship. What was he? He wonders aloud, unable to shake the feeling that there is more to PJ than meets the eye. Makyo lets out his inner monologue out and says, "I have no clue." "Share," enthusiastically says Makyo, idiot, giving the whole scene a touch of brightness and silliness. The next morning, after a restless night, Makyo is filled with a renewed sense of determination. He grips the sword left behind by PJ, a fierce resolve burning in his eyes. "I'm going to seek revenge on the desert with PJ's sword," he declares, his voice firm and unwavering. His companion looks at him with concern, but knows better than to try and dissuade him. "But before that, let's head to the river to fetch some water," she suggests, knowing that they need to be well prepared for the battle ahead. As they approach the river, they are greeted by the unexpected presence of a familiar face. Standing at the water's edge is the female cleric they encountered previously. "Do you need something?" he asks, unsure of her intentions. The cleric's expression is serious as she introduces herself. "My name is Jennifer Volkov," she says with a determined tone. "I have left the White Lightning," she adds, her voice tinged with sadness and resolve. Jennifer takes a deep breath, gathering her courage before making her request. "Could you please take me in here?" she asks, her voice trembling slightly. Makyo quickly refuses. "No," he says firmly, his expression unyielding. Jennifer is visibly upset by his response, but tries again. "As a former cleric, I should be useful for injuries and illnesses," she argues, desperation creeping into her voice. She pleads with him, explaining that she managed consumables in her previous party and could be of help to them. Despite her arguments, Makyo remains unconvinced. "I refuse," he says again, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. Jennifer's frustration reaches a breaking point as she desperately tries to convince him. I'm from the north. I can handle the cold, she cries, but her words fall on deaf ears. Please take me in, she begs, her voice cracking with emotion. Makyo, however, is unmoved. Why did she come all the way to this remote area? He wonders to himself, still unable to understand her motivations. Jennifer, her posture defensive, stands before Makyo, who appears calm but direct. Makyo casually asks, could it be that you didn't leave but were fired from the party? His straightforwardness catches Jennifer off guard. She recoils visibly, a mixture of embarrassment and anger flooding her expression. Her eyes widen, and she stammers, "That's none of your business." Her defensiveness is palpable, yet Makyo remains unfazed. Makyo's gaze hardens, and he responds coolly, "Well, this is my land. Without knowing the circumstances, I can't let you live here." His words are matter of fact, creating a stark boundary between them. Jennifer, flustered and unsettled, struggles to meet his eyes, her face contorting with an internal struggle. As the next moment unfolds, Jennifer's guard begins to crumble. Her previous bravado fades, and with downcast eyes, she softly admits, "My companion said I'm no longer needed, so please let me live here." Makyo listens to her confession but doesn't seem moved by her plea. His response is blunt, "I don't think the so part is clear here. Either way, you can't live here." Jennifer looks crushed, her last attempt to explain herself rejected so effortlessly. "Why don't you go back? Go home," Makyo suggests, his tone unyielding. Jennifer's lips tremble, and she lowers her head further, perhaps in shame or perhaps in frustration at her own helplessness. Her vulnerability becomes more apparent as she reveals the depth of her isolation. She continues, "I'm an orphan. I have no home to return to." Her words are quiet but heavy with sorrow as she tries to make Makyo understand her desperation. However, Makyo isn't finished. His gaze turns slightly softer, but his logic remains firm as he adds, "It's better to go to a safe place than this demon land." Though not entirely unkind, his words leave no room for argument. Jennifer's determination does not waver, and she continues to plead her case. "This land is the place I've been searching for," she exclaims, her eyes alight with hope. She speaks of an ideal, wonderful land where she can live in peace, free from betrayal and the harshness of her past. "Where I won't be betrayed by anyone," she murmurs, lost in her own thoughts. But Makyo is not swayed. "Oi, I'm still here. This is my land," he retorts, growing increasingly frustrated with her persistence. "Did you even listen to what I said?" he demands, but his words seem to have no effect on her.
That's the climax for today, folks. Let's savor that sweet, sweet post-plot glow. Thanks for tuning in, my cultured connoisseurs. If you loved this recap, make sure to subscribe for more updates on this story and many others, and leave a comment while you're at it. See you in the next recap. Let's see how much deeper we can get into the plot next time